In today's video, we'll be diving into the 2024 electoral map using insights from Polls' latest election forecast. Now, focusing on the electoral map, we'll first identify the solid states for both candidates. These are states where Harris and Trump each have at least a 99% likelihood of winning, meaning there is almost no competition to speak of. Starting with the solid blue states, K.L. Harris is poised to dominate the Pacific Coast, with decisive victories expected in Washington, Oregon, and California. She's also set to win in Hawaii, Colorado, and Illinois. In the northeastern part of the country, she's on track to secure Maine's 1st District, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. Combined, these wins would give her 177 electoral votes. On the other hand, for Donald Trump, the former president is projected to comfortably win several states: Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and nearly all of Nebraska, with the exception of its. In this section, we're continuing to break down the electoral map by adding in the likely states. These are states where either K.L. Harris or Donald Trump have a strong but not guaranteed chance of winning. Though the races in these states are more competitive compared to the solid states, each candidate still holds a very favorable position. The probability of either candidate winning these states falls between 85% and 99%, meaning that while there is some level of uncertainty, the odds still clearly favor one over the other. To begin, we'll look at the likely blue states that are expected to support K.L. Harris. There aren't many of them, but the vice president has a 92% chance of winning New Mexico. Moving up to the northeast, Harris is also expected to win both New Hampshire and Maine, two states where Joe Biden had comfortable victories in the last election. In New Hampshire, Harris's chances sit at 90%, while in Maine, they are even higher at 96%. Additionally, Harris is projected to win the 2nd congressional district in Nebraska, securing one additional electoral vote with a 90% probability. This district has been a battleground, but Harris appears to have the upper hand. In the Mid-Atlantic region, New Jersey comes into play with 14 electoral votes. Although Democrats have faced increasing challenges in the state compared to previous years, Harris still maintains a solid 98% chance of winning New Jersey. Lastly, we have Virginia, where Democrats lost the governorship back in 2021. Despite this setback at the state level, Harris remains the favorite to win Virginia's electoral votes in the presidential race, with a strong 95% likelihood of victory. With the addition of these solid and likely states to Harris's column, she now surpasses the 200 electoral vote threshold. This puts her just 54 electoral votes away from securing the presidency, significantly boosting her position in the race. Harris's campaign is in a commanding position, but with key battlegrounds still to be decided, the competition remains fierce. However, her lead in the likely and solid states demonstrates her clear path toward potential victory. Donald Trump, however, has his own set of likely states that show strong support for his candidacy. Let's start with Iowa and Ohio, two states that were once considered competitive, particularly in the early 2000s, but that is no longer the case. Trump has a solid grip on both of these states, with a 92% chance of winning Iowa and a 98% chance of securing Ohio. These two states are now firmly in the likely red category, meaning Trump is highly favored to win them without much resistance from K.L. Harris. Next, moving down to the Sun Belt, we encounter two major states that will have a significant impact due to their large number of electoral votes: Texas and Florida. Together, these states contribute a combined total of 70 electoral votes, making them crucial prizes in the election. While Democrats have long fought to make these states competitive, especially given their population size and shifting demographics, they've yet to break through. At some point in the future, Democrats may succeed in winning these states, but it seems unlikely that Harris will be the candidate to do it this time around. In Texas, Trump has a 92% chance of coming out on top, while in Florida, Harris's odds of success are even slimmer, as Trump holds a 91% chance of victory. Both states are expected to go to Trump. In addition, Trump is also favored in Maine's 2nd congressional district, where he has a 92% probability of winning, and Alaska, where his chances of victory are pegged at 96%. Alaska, traditionally a Republican stronghold, has been showing signs of moving slightly to the left, especially after a Democrat, Mary Peltola, was elected as the state's sole representative in the U.S. House. Nonetheless, Trump's dominance in Alaska remains strong. With the solid and likely states now filled in, Trump stands at 219 electoral votes compared to Harris's 216, making this a close race so far. But we can't overlook Minnesota, which carries 10 electoral votes. This state is particularly important because it could serve as an early indicator of how the rest of the night will unfold for K.L. Harris. If Harris manages to secure Minnesota early in the evening, it will significantly boost her chances of winning the entire election. However, if the race in Minnesota turns out to be tight, that could signal a much more competitive and challenging path for her moving forward. Minnesota may very well serve as a bellwether for the overall election outcome. Keeping an eye on Minnesota during election night will be critical. The state's significance is amplified by the fact that K.L. Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, is currently the sitting governor. Harris selected Walz as her running mate largely to strengthen her chances in Minnesota, a state that Joe Biden won by 7 percentage points in the last election. If Harris manages to outperform Biden's margin, she'll be in excellent shape to secure the presidency. As it stands, polls forecast a 94% chance of Harris winning Minnesota. With such strong odds in her favor, the state looks promising for her campaign. However, beyond Minnesota, there are still 7 key battlegrounds that will ultimately decide the election. These 7 remaining states are the most competitive on the map, and they are the true deciders of the presidency. No other states will hold as much sway over the final outcome. The voters in these areas will have the power to determine who the next president will be. Interestingly, all 7 of these states are categorized as tilt states, meaning neither candidate has a commanding lead. There isn't a single state left where either Harris or Trump has a chance higher than 65%. These states represent the slimmest margins of advantage, and the race could swing in either direction depending on last-minute factors. Looking at the electoral map, you'll notice that these 7 states are highlighted in white, symbolizing their uncertain status. No candidate holds a clear upper hand here, and that's what makes them so crucial. Let's start by focusing on the Sun Belt, where Trump tends to perform better. In contrast, K.L. Harris is expected to dominate the Midwest, which has historically leaned heavily blue. Starting with Nevada, Harris is considered a slight favorite. Polls gives her a 56% chance of winning the state, which has reliably voted for Democrats in every presidential election since 2008. Harris is on track to keep this tradition alive, although the margin by which she may win could be slim. Nevada's importance cannot be overstated, as it's one of the bellwether states that will provide an early indication of how close this election truly is. With both campaigns focusing on key regions like the Sun Belt and Midwest, the outcome in these critical states could make or break the election for either candidate. Arizona is another battleground state to watch, as it played a pivotal role in the 2020 election when Joe Biden narrowly won it by just 0.3%. This was a historic moment, marking the first time a Democrat had carried Arizona since 1996. If K.L. Harris can replicate Biden's victory in the state, it would be a significant step towards securing the presidency. However, the latest forecast from polls gives Donald Trump a slight edge in Arizona, with a 61% chance of reclaiming the state. Despite this, the race is expected to be extremely tight, and Arizona remains one of the key tilt states, leaning ever so slightly toward Trump. A win here for either candidate could have a huge impact on the overall election outcome. Moving east to Georgia, we find another incredibly close race. Georgia also saw a historic flip in 2020, when Biden won it by an even narrower margin of 0.24%, making it the tightest race of the entire election. As things stand now, Harris is projected to lose Georgia, though by a very slim margin. Trump is currently favored with a 63% chance of winning the state. Still, the situation in Georgia could shift unpredictably, especially given recent hurricanes impacting the East Coast. Factors such as early voting could play a crucial role, and Democrats generally tend to dominate in early voting, which may work in Harris's favor. Nevertheless, Georgia is expected to tilt toward Trump, but it remains a state to watch closely given its unpredictability. North Carolina presents a different dynamic. This state stands out as the only swing state that voted for Trump in both the 2016 and 2020 elections, while the other key battleground states flipped to Biden in 2020. Trump currently holds a 61% chance of winning North Carolina again, but this is by no means a sure thing. One complicating factor is the Republican candidate for governor, Mark Robinson, whose controversial campaign has been seen as a potential liability for Trump. If Robinson's negative image drags down Republican support, Trump's chances in the state could be undermined. Therefore, while North Carolina is currently projected to lean in Trump's favor, the possibility of an upset remains on the table. The races in North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada are all incredibly tight, with each of them characterized as tilt red. This means they are highly competitive and could swing in favor of either candidate as Election Day approaches. The stakes are high, and every vote will matter. As we turn our attention to the iconic blue wall states, these areas have historically leaned Democratic, voting blue consistently since the early 1990s. However, the landscape shifted dramatically in 2016 when Trump managed to flip all three of them, a move that played a crucial role in his electoral victory. Fast forward to 2020, and Biden successfully reclaimed these states, helping him to oust Trump from office. This time around, Kamala Harris faces a daunting task. She must win all three states to have a shot at the presidency. Fortunately for her, this region has a long history of Democratic support, especially after Biden's victories in the last election. Looking at the latest forecast polls, Kamala Harris has a 53% chance of winning Wisconsin. This state is generally considered the most conservative among the blue wall trio, but Harris's choice of Tim Walz from Minnesota as her running mate may bolster her support in neighboring Wisconsin. Additionally, Harris has a favorable 59% chance of winning in Michigan, which is viewed as the most liberal of the swing states. If she can secure Michigan with a margin of around 2 points, she'll significantly enhance her prospects of winning the overall election. The history of these three states is notable. In 2016, they all went for Trump by razor-thin margins of less than 1%. This trend of close races is likely to continue, keeping the electoral spotlight firmly on these pivotal states. Now, with only Pennsylvania left in the mix, the numbers stand at Harris with 257 electoral votes and Trump at 262. The outcome in Pennsylvania is likely to determine the election winner due to the narrow margins in other battleground states. Fortunately for Harris, she holds a 53% chance of taking Pennsylvania, which is significant because it is Joe Biden's home state. Although Democrats no longer benefit from having Biden's name on the ballot, Harris seems poised to secure the 19 critical electoral votes from Pennsylvania without needing that connection. As per the forecast, if she achieves this, it will bring her total to 276 electoral votes, placing her in a strong position as the election draws near. In contrast, Trump stands at only 262 electoral votes, and his campaign momentum has dwindled since the summer months, especially following Biden's exit from the race. Thank you for tuning into this analysis. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more insightful content as we gear up for the pivotal election in November.